Okay, good afternoon and welcome to the 2021 virtual NDDOT Construction and Project Development Conference. This is the second and probably the best, in my humble opinion, in a series of 7 weekly sessions. My name is Jeff Jareva. I'm with the Construction Services Division, and I'll be moderating all of today's session. The conference website includes a link to the schedule and agenda. Today's presentations will be recorded and posted to the website. You can find the page by searching for Virtual Construction and Project Development Conference. There will be a form available for recording PDH hours. I think you can find it at that link. And today's presentations will run anywhere from an hour, hour and a half, depending on questions and a little bit of duration. And any questions you have can be submitted using the chat feature or the question and answer feature that you'll see on the Teams interface there. So without further ado, today's first presenters will be Phil Murdoff, followed by Lance Bargman from the Construction Services Division. Phil Murdoff is the Construction Services Division Director. He graduated from NDSU with a civil engineering degree in 1991. He is a registered professional engineer in North Dakota and has worked for the department for 29 years and has still not found a legitimate buyer for his 2005 minivan. Phil, take it away.
That's true, Jeff. Thank you. I'm still looking for a buyer, and that thing is almost as old as I am, but I just want to make sure you can see my PowerPoint, Jeff. Is that correct? Okay, very good. So yeah, if anybody, it still runs great. I was just in Fargo on Monday with it, so it's got a lot of life in it, I think, but so yeah, it still gets me around. But anyway, no, thanks for the introduction, Jeff. I'm looking forward to the conference, this week and the remaining weeks, and it was a great way to kick it off last week with the director and Tom Everett there from Federal Highway. So let's get started here. First of all, I sure do miss seeing everyone in person. Maybe next year we'll be back to some sort of in-person conference. We've been trying to host this conference at the Bismarck Event Center for the last 2 years. But obviously that hasn't worked out. I'm thinking if we were at the Bismarck Event Center today and tomorrow after the conference, I could just walk down to the hall to the basketball arena, when it was over and watch some Class A state basketball games that are going to start this weekend. Wouldn't that be fun? We're going to find out this weekend if the Bismarck Century girls basketball team finishes with a perfect record this season. Going into the tournament, they're 23-0. But they're going to have to get past a tough Devils Lake Firebird team in the first round. So that's going to be fun to watch. So now that you got me started talking about basketball, one more thing of note. If you've not saw Jesse White from White Shield play, you need to watch him. This kid is amazing. He's the second all-time leading scorer in North Dakota boys basketball history, and he's fun to watch. So tomorrow, White Shield plays Powers Lake for the Region 8 championship and a spot in the state Class B boys tournament. So if you're a basketball fan like me, you're going to want to check that out, and because this is definitely an exciting time of the year for you as a basketball fan. I could probably keep talking about basketball the entire time here, and some of you might prefer that, but we better move on. So let's see here. As usual, I like to start out with a look at how our construction program compares to years past. The numbers are not necessarily finalized for 2021, but they're pretty close. And as you can see on the graphic here, we're expecting a similar size program in 2021 to what we've had the last few years. So now let's move on to some breaking news type current initiatives that you're going to want to hear about. So first, I'm going to talk about prompt pay, and then I'll talk a little bit about processing finals. I'm going to talk about processing contracts, and also touch on progress estimates. So now when I'm talking about prompt pay here, I'm not talking about the prompt pay that's in our specifications in terms of, how quickly the contractor needs to pay a subcontractor. The prompt pay that I'm talking about here is the payment from the owner or the department to the contractor. So how quickly we process pay estimates. So I think we can all agree that when someone performs work and the work is acceptable, that they should be paid relatively soon after that work has been completed. Nobody likes to receive payment for work they've done slowly. They're all looking for something fast, something quick. And just like we want that for ourselves in our own personal life, it also applies to those doing work on our highway construction projects. So as you may recall, this past summer, the department issued a request, and I guess I'll even call it a requirement, that we pay contractors at a minimum every 2 weeks for work that has been accepted. So I know you're all familiar with our specifications, and I know you're probably saying, well, section 10904 only requires payments monthly. Well, that's the maximum. There's no harm in paying more often than that. And now I realize, many of you were already paying more often than monthly, especially during periods when there was a lot of work happening, and that's great. So keep that up if you are. But for those of you that maybe were not doing that, the expectation is that the payments will be made every 2 weeks while the work is progressing. So, let's just think about this for a little bit and how the money trickles down on our projects and why this idea of paying quickly rather than slowly is important. So besides the prime contractor, as you all know, there's often many subcontractors, whether they're first, second, or third tier subcontractors. There's suppliers, manufacturers, and landowners involved in our projects, just to name a few. And oftentimes, it's a pay when paid type relationship. So the longer it takes the department or the owner to make payment, the longer it takes for that money to trickle down to all these various entities. And really that can put a burden on them. And frankly, over time, that can drive up prices. So again, the idea of paying quicker or more often, it's not a directive to cut corners or to make payment when the conditions of the contract are not met. You can still withhold payment, for situations that our spec allows you to withhold payment if the contractor is not in compliance with something. But it is a reminder that paying timely is important, and oftentimes, it's going to prevent small issues from becoming large ones. So in this regard, there's a couple things that have been changed and implemented this past year that are going to help with this. First of all, there's now an email notification system in the CARS program that will send automated emails to the project engineer if it has been 14 days since an estimate was prepared. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to check out section 5 of the construction records manual for the details of how this works. And if you're annoyed by these daily emails, reminding you that it's been 14 days since the last payment, there's a few things that can be done. First of all, and probably the most obvious, right, is a payment can be processed. The other thing that you can do in the CARS program is you can also enter a reason into the CARS program for withholding the payment. Or the other thing is, you can change the project status. So if the project status is changed to suspended or completed, that will stop the automatic email notification system from happening. Something else that was done this past year in regards to paying promptly is that an update was made to the pre-construction conference information that's available in the construction records manual. So the pre-construction conference template has been updated to prompt a discussion on payments at the pre-job meeting. So as you know, I know you all know this, the pre-job meeting, it's a great time to discuss all kinds of things, and it would be a great time to discuss, any payment related topics. Not only the timing of the payments, like we're discussing here, but also, who's going to receive these automated email copies of the pay estimates, what email addresses you want to enter into the system. And also, you can use the pre-job as a reminder to the contractor about their own prompt pay requirements, that are detailed in our specifications. So let's move on here. Actually, before I do, I've mentioned the CARS program and the construction records manual a few times already, and I just want to give a shout out to Lance and David and their teams as well for the work that they do keeping the CARS program and the construction records manual up to date. I mean, they all do a great job with everything they do. Everything from CARS user access to filing out projects and working with the IT staff and the districts to make improvements to the CARS program. So, not only thanks to Lance and David, but also their teams, Doug and Lori and Sean and Scott, Dennis and Josh. So thank you for all the work you've been doing and keeping up the CARS program and the construction records manual. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention final records and the processing of final payments to contractors. In this regard, there's just a couple things I want to highlight. First of all, as we close out projects, when the conditions outlined in the specifications have been met to reduce the retainage from 2% down to 1%, we should be doing that. We should be reducing that retainage. We should not be holding the money any longer than we have to when it is rightfully due to the contractor. So I know you're all familiar with it, but it might be good just to review section 10904 in our specifications and the conditions that need to occur for us to reduce the retainage. And if you're in that, if the contractor has met those conditions, then we should be reducing the retainage accordingly. The other thing I want to mention about finals is that it's very important to keep the finals tracking module that's located in CARS, keep that up to date. Having that information up to date in that finals tracking module, it's helpful for both workload management and just tracking the progress of our project finaling process. So, speaking of breaking news, this is hot off the press. And as you all know, there are a number of steps to closing out a project. And one step on most projects is to prepare a project narrative. And first of all, I want to thank Josh Jochum from our office for revamping our project narrative requirements and actually creating a project narrative template. So the construction records manual, which is available on our website, was actually just updated yesterday with this information. So that's how new it is. But so the idea of updating the narrative requirements was done with the idea that we wanted to streamline the information that we're seeking, and we wanted to add value to the process. So what Josh did is he worked with a lot of the end users, primarily those of us that are in the project development side of the organization, to determine, what do they use, what do they find value in when they're reviewing these project narratives that are being, completed by the project engineer and the construction team. And as a result of Josh's review, we removed some of the information that we were asking for on the project narratives, and then we also added some information and questions about the project. So if you're in the process of completing a project narrative, or obviously a lot of us are going to be working on them in the future, you're definitely going to want to check out the new updated information about project narratives in the construction records manual. So continuing with the theme, of promptness and punctuality, I want to share some information with you about the processing of contracts. So about a year and a half ago, the department moved from paper contracts and ink signatures to utilizing DocuSign and electronic signatures on our highway construction contracts. So, and honestly, this has been a game changer for us. And just for comparison purposes, I looked at the data from our October and November 2020 bid openings, so just a few months ago. And on those two bid openings combined, we had 28 projects or 28 contracts, 13 of them being DOT and 15 being, LPA projects, either city or county. And as you can see on the slide there, the average time that it took to execute the contract on our DOT projects utilizing DocuSign and electronic signatures was 4.5 days. Whereas, pretty much as far as I know, all the LPA contracts are still paper and ink. And there the average time for those 15 LPA projects was getting close to 25 days. So again, this isn't including the award time, so after the bid opening, there's a lot of review being done, and the owner has to make a decision on whether to award the project or not. But once the decision is made to award, this is the time frame to execute the contract, to send the contract to the contractor to sign it, bonding company to sign it, all the witnesses or notaries to sign it, the owner, whether it be the DOT or the city or county, to get their official signatures as well. So that's the time frame that I'm showing here. The 4.5 days for the DOT is after we award it, the time that it takes us to have that contract fully executed by everybody. So, you may be asking, well, why is this so important, or how does this impact the project? So here's just a couple of thoughts about it. First of all, we all know we have a limited construction season in North Dakota, right? So when we were talking about executing contracts, especially, during this time of the year when the weather's getting nice, or when work is gearing up, in the next few months here, late spring, early summer, and the contractor could actually be out on the project working, sometimes this extra 2 or 3 weeks is really what the project or the contractor needs, and could be the difference in getting that job done, say in one season or carrying over into the next. And the other thing, that I think about is, in the fall of the year, how many times have we said, man, if we only had, another 2 or 3 weeks, we wouldn't be up against this cold weather, for paving or pavement marking or whatever the activity is we're doing. So definitely, 2 or 3 weeks gain on just the contract execution process could really help out on our projects as far as timing and quality wise. The other impact, and it's something that's really came to light here in the last month, and right now, there's a lot of volatility with certain materials in terms of price and production schedules as a result of the recent cold weather, in Texas and I guess all throughout the southern United States for that matter. So when contractors are bidding a project, they get quotes for a material, and oftentimes those quotes are only good for a certain amount of time. So the quicker that the owner or the owner can award and execute a contract after a bid opening, the more opportunity the contractor now has to lock in those prices and procure those materials. And this is just going to also help prevent issues down the road. So that's why executing these contracts in the electronic world is really helpful. So again, I'm bringing this up as an awareness item, just showing the capabilities and the achievements that are possible by utilizing an automated electronic signature process, to execute your contracts. So if there's any LPAs out there that have questions, or you're interested in implementing this for yourself, you can sure call our office, and we would be more than happy to discuss, our experience with you and share that knowledge. So we'll move on here now. I'm going to talk about some recent changes to the progress estimates. So So this change doesn't really impact, the processing of estimates at the project or the district level. It's really just a change that's occurring in our office or the maintenance division, because some estimates are approved by maintenance if they're coming out of maintenance budget. So it's really a change that occurred between either construction or maintenance and finance division. And what it is it was really born out of the pandemic, the COVID pandemic, when we all got sent home. So you may or may not be aware, but when every estimate gets approved here, in the central office construction division, and we not only had to sign off on the estimate itself, but we also had to sign a claim for payment. And the estimate, like you approving cars, is done electronically, but that claim, the associated claim for payment, was still a paper document that was signed in ink, and then it was routed down to our finance division. Well, again, working from home and the whole COVID thing, that was pretty difficult. So this change now is that the estimate and the claim for payment that is signed in the central office or central office construction or maintenance division will now have the claim for payment and this estimate certificate on the estimate cover sheet. We'll no longer have the separate document, the separate claim for payment document. And so I guess you won't see a change in the estimate when you're in there approving it or creating an estimate, but if you happen to go back into cars and look at an approved estimate, you're going to notice that this statement is now on there. And so I just wanted you to be aware that you may like, well, that wasn't on there when I initially approved it or I initially prepared the estimate, but it will show up after it's approved in either the construction or the maintenance division. So something just to be aware. Shouldn't impact anything out in the field, but something just to make our workflow a little simpler here in the central office. And with that, that's about all that I wanted to cover. I do have one last thing that I want to talk about, and that is that, so Lori Peterson, I think pretty much everybody knows Lori, and you get emails from Lori, and she's the one that keeps us all on task. Lori Peterson is retiring from our office, well, from the department anyway, on May 1st, after 40 years with the department. So we're sure going to miss Lori, and we sure wish her well, and congratulations on her upcoming retirement. So, over the next month and a half, if you have the chance to talk to Lori, you're going to want to wish her congratulations and happy retirement, because she's the one that sort of keeps us all on task and keeps the paperwork flowing, and we're sure going to miss her. So congratulations, Lori. And with that, I do want to thank Sheila as well. Sheila Kitson in our office. Sheila put together the presentation, the PowerPoint for me, and put in all the animation and so on. So thank you very much, Sheila. And then before I turn it back to Jeff, one more closing thought. So I hope you can all get your COVID vaccine when it's available to you. I know it's starting to open up a little more. To me, it's going to be nice, when we can start doing more of the things that we used to do, like gathering at sports events or traveling. And speaking of traveling, it reminds me of this one time when I overheard this photon checking into a hotel, and the person at the desk asked if they could get a bellhop to help this photon carry its bags up to the room. But the photon politely declined and said, "No need, I'm traveling late." That's all I got, Jeff. I'll turn it back to you.